Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Eva and I love making YouTube videos and talking about literature and nerdy historical stuff. I know this channel has new subscribers, so thank you to those who have subscribed to my channel. For those who are new in this channel and who don't know me well, I am Venezuelan and I live in Canada and I study literature in Canada. So today's video is going to be very casual because I am preparing some content for October and I don't want to stress myself too much with all the stuff that I have going on. The autumn school session began last week, so I already have lots of stuff to read for my courses. I wanted to show you what books I'm going to be reading because at the end of the day, whenever I make my videos, they are always intertwined with whatever I read at the university. At the same time, for those who don't study literature but are curious to see how much we have to read and what type of books, poems and short stories we have to read, I wanted to give you an idea of what to expect if you are planning to apply for a literature program. So grab yourself a cup of tea, hot chocolate or coffee and join me. So for this session I'm taking 4 courses or modules. I have 2 literature courses, American Literature and British Literature. I have 1 course that is not a literature course but is part of the literature program and is mandatory, and it's a course about the history of English. And the 4th course is a French course that it's not mandatory for literature students but that I have to take in order to get my diploma. So it's a requirement for the diploma. Basically, because I go to a French Canadian university, I have to fulfill the French language requirements to get my diploma. French speakers, on the other hand, have to fulfill English language requirements to get their diploma. So that's kind of how it works, at least in Quebec. Okay, so for my history of English, I only need to read 1 book. It's this one here. It's called The Story of English by Robert Macron, Robert McNeill, and William Cran. I read the first chapter and it's not as boring as I thought it would be. But I really hate the cover. Like, it reminds me of those primary school books that no one wanted to read. This course so far is really boring to me. The thing is that in Quebec we have a college and universities. So after high school you go to college. You go for 2 to 3 years depending on what you want to do, and then you do your university. Many people think that college in Quebec is the same as high school or is an extension of the high school program. But it's really different. Like, the courses there are more like most of the courses there are like university courses. So I went to college to get my literature degree there, and now I have to complete 3 years in university, and I'm on my 3rd year of university. I'm making my 3 years of university in 4 years because I needed to complete lots of French language requirement courses. So I'm a little behind because of that. So the thing with the college degree is that I saw many courses there related to literature, and I saw there a course about history of French, and which is intertwined with the history of English because of all the William the Conqueror deal, right? And I also saw a little bit of history of English. And some of those college courses tend to be even more advanced than some of my university courses. For instance, my poetry course last session was way easier than my college poetry course. So now you might understand why I am bored with this course, because most of the things that I'm going to see in this course are things that I already saw before. So now for my American literature course, we are seeing works from the 1890s to the 1940s. For this course, we need to read 6 novels, and we also have to read 11 poems and some short stories. So the first novel they asked me to read for this week was The Awakening by Kate Chopin. I finished this yesterday and I didn't like it as much as I thought I would. The novel is about patriarchal oppression, but not the oppression that you see, but more about the oppression that you feel as a woman. So the story is something that I feel that every woman can relate. However, the protagonist is so privileged that was very difficult for me to connect with her. But I really recommend it because it's a short novel. It's only 200 pages. And it was written at the end of the 19th century, which was super controversial. So to me, that's the interesting part, because it feels very contemporary. The next book we have to read is The Souls of Black Folk by Dubois. This book has me intrigued because I have seen that some people say they are essays, while others talk to it as if it were very poetic. So I'm excited to see what this is about, and I think I'm gonna like it. We also need to read Our Town by Thornton Wilder. It is this book here. And we also have Sherwood and the Sun Winners Book, Ohio. I have no idea what these two books are about. I'm really not very educated when it comes to American literature, so please forgive me. And last but not least, we have The Sun Also Rises by Ernest Hemingway. This one I have read, and I really like this novel when I read it. I have read it only once. But yeah, I really love the story. I love the ending so much, so I'm excited to reread this. And then the last novel is The Great Gatsby, which is one of my favorite novels, and I feel quite intense whenever I read this story. So I'm thinking I'm gonna be writing my essays on this novel, unless one of the other novels captivate my attention and I decide to write my essays on another work. I know we will also be reading some short stories from Faulkner. It is actually a pity that we are not reading one of his novels, because I finished The Sound and the Fury. I managed to finish that book. It was really amazing. The only thing that I lament is the fact that I read it in two parts. So I read the first part, I have to stop reading because I was dealing with some stuff and I was very stressed and busy. And then I continued the novel like 2 months later or 1 month later, and it wasn't the same. I feel like I have to reread the story. But it was really good. I really liked it. And we are also going to read, I think, short stories by Steinbeck. I've been wanting to read Steinbeck for so long that I feel really excited for those, but it's the last one at the end. So we'll see how I like it. So my second literature course is a survey of British literature. And oh boy, for this course we have lots of things to read. So we basically have to read 7 books for this course, plus 31 poems and short stories. Luckily to me, I think I have read 90% of the things they are asking me to read, so I feel really at ease with the content, but it really is a lot. Last week we have to read Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. This was awesome. The poetry in this poem is perfect. The descriptions are so rich and evocative that it's impossible to get bored. This is one of the most beautiful poems I have ever read. Really, hands down. And also the movie is quite cool. I never finished watching the movie. I really struggle to watch movies, but I really like the aesthetic. It was really beautiful. So if you like folk tales, The Brothers Grimm and ballads, go read this, you won't regret it. For this same course, I'm currently reading Paradise Lost, only book 1 and 2, which is, I feel, it's manageable. I have no problem reading the whole thing because I have read this book like 7 times. I feel like I'm constantly reading Paradise Lost. I kind of sometimes stop reading for 1 month and then I continue reading it, and then I stop and then I continue again. And those 2 books I have read them the most. Like, I think I have read them at least 10 times and I never get bored of those first books. There are still even bookmarks from like 2 years ago that I haven't removed. All of the books in which Satan appears are really interesting, so I don't mind reading those, but I found that the page mark here, and I was currently stuck in the I think it is the part where Adam and Eve are having their conversation and stuff, and this part is always boring to me. It's like, I don't care about Adam and Eve, but I love Satan in Paradise Lost. So yeah, this is one of my favorite poems as well. Well, it's only the parts in which Satan appears. We are also reading The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And I think I have read this story like 3 times already, so it's already annotated. It's going to be an easy rereading experience. We are also reading Orinoco by Afra Ben, and I have never heard about this author or this book, so I'm really excited to see what this story is about. If you have read it, please let me know how do you like it. We also have to read Gulliver's Travels by Jonathan Swift. Before this course, I have never read this story, but I know what the story is about. It's just too famous not to know, right? I think the only work I have read from Jonathan Swift is A Modest Proposal. If you haven't read that essay, you must read it. As soon as you finish watching this video, you must read that essay because it's really hilarious and bizarre. It is a satirical essay in which Swift proposes that to end poverty, we need to eat babies. So it's really good. So I never made the connection that Swift was the one who wrote Gulliver's Travels. And when I realized that it was Jonathan Swift, I was like, I need to read this, and I know I'm gonna like this, and I know this is going to be hilarious. And I know this is going to be the type of story that doesn't take itself seriously. And I know he's going to make fun of everything and everyone around him. So to me, it's always delightful when authors use contemporary allusions in their work, especially in this period, because I love the history of the Georgian and Regency eras. The other book we are reading is Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad. I've never read this book, so I think from a Victorian era perspective, this is going to be very interesting. I don't have necessarily high expectations in regards to this novel because I have heard some negative comments and reviews. But it's okay. Like, I always like to hear negative reviews before reading a novel because my expectations are low and I end up enjoying the work. We also need to read A Vindication of the Rights of Women by Mary Wollstonecraft. I don't have the book here, but the professor asked us to buy the Norton Anthology, which actually has all these books that I just show you. It's just that I don't like the pages of these books. I cannot read with them in bed. I also suffer from stiff neck, so holding this, guys, it's not good for my bone structure. But I decided to buy them because all the poems that he asks us to read are in these books. I usually get them from like online sources and stuff, but I end up having different files all around. I'm not super organized as a person with my files, so that's not very convenient to me. And I know that because I study English literature, I'm going to continue using these tomes of the Norton Anthology. So I bought the individual copies because it's easier for me to carry them and read them. And I bought these huge tomes just to have the collection of poems he wants us to read. So to give you an idea of how much I have to read with 2 or 3 literature courses in 1 week. Last week I had to read The Awakening, I had to read The Green Knight, I had to read 50 pages of this book, and I also had to read 10 pages, I think, from Beowulf. So I had to read in 1 week like 400 pages, I guess. It's not that bad. I mean, sometimes you do have to read 3 books in 1 week, and each book is 300 pages, so that's 900 pages, and I only really have 2 literature courses. The third course is a history course, as I told you. On top of that, I have my French course assignments, and I also have a lot to read in that course. But it's mostly grammar. It's nothing to do with essays or, fiction, which is a pity because I'd rather read an entire French novel than reading 20 pages of grammar. So of course, because to me this is homework, although I enjoy reading most of these novels, I also need to read something out of my course curriculum because that helps me to have some mental space for myself, right? So because of that reason, I am always reading a book. I'm currently reading A Gentleman in Moscow by Amor Towles. This is really good. It's kind of a slow novel, but I like it because it allows me to relax and to just not to worry about anything. The prose is beautiful. I like the main character a lot, and it's like a quiet reading. And I'm also reading the Lord Byron biography. This is by Fiona McCarthy. So basically, in the past year, I've realized that I like reading biographies because I began listening to podcasts. That type of podcast when they talk about the life of a person. It's not actually a biography, it's not an ebook. But I ended up obsessing with each person that I was hearing about in this podcast. So for instance, I spent like 3 hours listening to a podcast about the Marquis de Sade, and I wanted to hear more about him. And I always spend lots of time listening to podcasts about Byron, and I wanted, and it's never enough. There's not enough people out there discussing these authors. So I decided to get the Byron biography to see if I was able to get through it and to enjoy it. And actually I'm finding this reading very delightful. Like, again, I feel like I have nothing to worry about when I'm reading this. It's not like, it doesn't feel like work. It feels very pleasing. It also, the author really manages to bring his person to life. So my idea will be to actually read more audiobooks or audio biographies. I got Audible, but most of the biographies I wanted to read are not in ebook format. So I guess in the meantime I have to just read it in the traditional way. So that's the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. Please let me know in the comments if you have read any of these novels, which ones you have read and which ones you have enjoyed. Take care and see you in the next video. Bye!